quite impressed with this morning's webinar. My name is Allan Macdonald, Project Manager Rail for EAL, and this morning I'd like to take up to 30 minutes of your time to run through a presentation on overhead line construction qualifications from EAL, our range of qualifications and apprenticeships, why we have what we have. So my first slide, which isn't changing for me. I do apologise, my slide seems to be locked. Thank you. Why choose EAL for rail? I appreciate many of you watching are existing EAL centres or have recently interacted with EAL, but I'll quickly just run through this slide to explain who EAL are and why we're operating in the rail sector. EAL have a long tradition of awarding in the engineering sector and associated sectors, and indeed we've been in existence since the 1970s. We have some 80%, 78–80% market share of all engineering competence qualifications. So as such, we feel we are well positioned to enter the rail sector and support the development of the rail engineering staff. We do have a full-time external verifier team and have recently expanded it and now have a regional-based team, all who have personal track safety, all who are competent on working on within railway engineering in Scotland, the North, the Central and South England. So we have a broad team to support centres and to support you in offering EAL qualifications. And one thing we do particularly and always have taken pride in is the transparency of our pricing structures, whereas when we quote a price, that is the price. We have no hidden prices, no hidden certification fees, exam fees, etc. EAL pricing is very transparent, which does make it much easier to operate with. And speaking from personal experience as a former EAL centre years ago, it was always much easier for finance side of things to operate with EAL because you knew what the invoices were and there was no surprises coming. For these particular qualifications, where we can, where they're not competence qualifications but learning qualifications, which I'll explain more of shortly, we have taken a more flexible approach to assessment, where we provide assessments or assignments, if you want to call them that, whereas you can use the ones we provide for you as exemplars and just use them as given, or you can amend them and change them to suit your own needs. So they have been written by the rail industry, we feel they're good, but if you wanted to amend them or change them to suit your own business needs, you can do in conjunction with this. So what we've tried to do there is remove the burden of assessment and assessment planning on you by providing good quality materials and make these qualifications much easier to deliver. The background to this presentation really, I mean, EAL have been operating in rail now for, well, really about a year, 18 months, but really about a year. Our first registration is about a year now. So, and in that time, you know, we entered the sector. We've got 20 qualifications now, including one in Scotland and 19 in England. So we're broadening what we're doing, but why we're doing it, of course, and the impetus behind the changes in the rail industry, the move towards more focus on education and training, of course, cost period 5, the 38 billion identified in cost period 5. And for the sake of today's presentation, it's for overhead line construction. The National Electrification Project contains some 2 billion of that, and there's a lot of literature and articles about at the moment about this, but there's some 2,000 jobs, new jobs, being identified, which clearly identifies a skill gap. You know, if you've got to read the rail press, where it talks about bringing in workers from overseas, it talks about the skill shortages. So we've developed these qualifications, and all these qualifications are unique to EAL. They're new and unique. None of them have existed for more than about 8 months. And it's been totally done in line with the National Electrification Project to support the training of these identified 2,000 jobs or plus, but also considering cost period 5. I'll mention more later about it, but of course if you were to take an apprentice through a level 2 and a level 3 apprenticeship, you're into cost period 6. So the qualifications we're developing now is to build a strong base and a workforce for the future, and certainly looking further ahead into the next cost periods. All qualifications we've developed are based on National Occupational Standards, NOS. And forgive me, I haven't actually put National Occupational Standards in the presentation. These new NOS were developed by SEMPTA, the Sector Skills Council, but they were done in conjunction with the industry. This was hosted by RIA, and representatives from the major electrification companies and Network Rail were on the committee that did them. And basically, the NOS for overhead line construction are very closely based on the content of Network Rail's overhead line electric equipment construction standards, OLEC 1, 2 and 3. So you can have confidence in the content of these qualifications that it very much maps across to the overhead line equipment construction standards from Network Rail, and indeed there's quite a synergy there. We developed the standards. SEMTA launched the new apprenticeship framework, overhead line construction framework, in February 2014, and we launched our suite of qualifications. So it is all quite new, and they've been sort of in the past year, and we do have the first registrations. People are doing this. I'm sure if you've seen the press, there was an event a few weeks back in Doncaster with Intertrain and SPL for the first 15 apprentices on this framework. And the new training span gone up in Doncaster. So it's exciting times. It's certainly starting to happen. So what have we got? The actual offering from EAL. Well, we have a level 2 apprenticeship, and we have a level 3 apprenticeship. We have a freestanding level 2 qualification for mature workers. Now, basically, when I say apprenticeship, the level 2 apprenticeship and level 3 apprenticeship basically means they have a technical certificate and they have an NVQ. Now the NVQs are again based on very closely mirror the content of the NOS, and if you see them, or when you see them, you will certainly recognise the OLEC standards in there. The language is very, very similar. The level 2 certificate qualification we have is one that was developed. It's not for apprentices as such. It was developed to support mature workers or existing workers in the rail industry, or new adult workers coming into the rail industry. And we have this qualification currently being used for example, for retraining ex-military people to come into the rail industry for overhead line construction. It's been designed to be user-friendly for a mature person, where it doesn't require a huge amount of classroom time. It requires some, and the tests, the knowledge test, the knowledge is tested, but it's tested on a paper-based test, which is administered by the centre, by you. So we're taking some of the burden off where other qualifications may be online tested. That proved to be quite problematical. So we've tried to make it as easy to use as possible and user-friendly and suitable for the application, where these tests could be, the theory was, these tests and this qualification could be delivered almost trackside, almost in a porter cabin. And that's the logic we followed with it. We also have for the qualifications, if I just show you all EAL, this will be in the pricing at the end, all EAL NVQs come with the choose our publications. It's quite a robust A4 ring binder where your NVQ units are in. A 4 ring binder. It's designed for use in an engineering environment. We're predominantly awarded engineering. It's designed to be robust, but you don't want to be lugging that around everywhere when you're on site and on track. So what we've developed for the rail qualifications, there's a range of them, but this A6 logbook, where there's a slide in a moment more detail, where you record the job you've done on the day. You record the page number, and the page number then is mapped against the standard, and this can stay in the training centre. So we've thought it through to make it appropriate. It's appropriate for you the guys to use, but certainly easier to use, and that of course can be carried very easily into the workplace. I put on a slide there that the bottom thing, all EAL qualifications and OLC qualifications are funded. All qualifications are available for funding. They've all been submitted for funding, but of course the fundability of the qualification, if that's really a word, depends on the learner. Excuse me. It's to do with the age of the learner. Has the learner previously done the qualification? So there is a criteria, but all our qualifications are available for funding and are certainly registered with the SFA. Please, sorry, excuse me. That's just the overhead line apprenticeship framework. It's one framework with both levels in it. And if you consider that a level 2 apprenticeship takes 18 months to 2 years, a level 2 apprenticeship takes 2 years to 2.5 years, you can see there if you had a young person starting today, or the 15 I mentioned earlier, and if they did both a level 2 and they followed it with a level 3, stressing this does map across to the OLEC standards. The level 2 apprenticeship would be supervised, and of course the level 3 apprenticeship would be unsupervised competence, in line with OLEC standards. If a young person did that now, they'd be coming out of their time and cost period 6, which does give you some indication of the time frames we're working within. The people, of course, will be working through that period in cost period 5, and working for you, be useful for you, but they won't be competent, skilled, almost till cost period 6 now. I'm sorry, I've got a cough at the moment. So the level 2 apprenticeship qualification framework, content, I beg your pardon, they've got technical certificate, rail engineering underpinning knowledge. That's quite a generic qualification, but we've developed a set of OLEC-based, OLC-based assessments for it, and very much focusing on the skills, the knowledge needed to operate, but also not forgetting the importance of progression for young people. So all our qualifications contain maths and science, and sufficient maths and science to enable them to progress to the next level. It would be very well, we'd be selling them short if we offered level 2 and they couldn't progress to level 3. And also the second qualification there is the NVQ, which again I've showed you the thing at the A4 ring binder I showed you earlier, and of course the A6 logbook. Level 3 is very similar, but the level 3 technical certificate, we're currently, the OLEC units, the OLC units are currently under development, and we're developing a suite of units to give a pathway in that qualification. So you can, it's again a generic qualification, pathways in track, pathways in OLEC, pathways in traction and rolling stock and so on. But you can focus on the OLC pathway. And again, the maths and science within the assessments there are designed to allow people to progress. A level 3 advanced apprentice is your engineer of the future. And if they can't progress beyond the level 3 because you haven't given them maths and science, again, sold them short. So these young people are your engineers of the future. And I very strongly feel these have been written by sector experts, these assessments and these qualifications, and this really is about enabling young people to progress and giving you the staffing for the future, cost period 6 and beyond. That's basically what's inside the A4 ring binder I showed you, one of the NVQ assessment units. We call them assessment routes, just in the EAL language. And basically these are they tell you, basically, they just tell you what in the front cover there tells you what's in the unit, what it's about, what it covers, and the sort of things you have to do to be assessed for it. And if you open up and within the units, you can see what I was probably badly describing earlier, where you record the evidence. And that's where, for instance, on the little logbook, on the little A6 logbook, you would put the page number in that reference there, and that would relate to the work they've done. The two things are mapped together. So it does follow a logic. Again, it is very much about ease of assessment and to remove the burden on people. What we don't want you doing is complex, having to develop complex materials yourself to support this qualification. And I'm certainly always open to suggestions for improvement, and indeed we're having feedback coming in now with revised next time these go to print, we might make a few small changes. So it's certainly, your feedback on these materials is very interesting to us. Sorry if I just cough. Now that's the logbook, sorry, which I'm waving about at the screen which you can't see. But that's basically the content of the logbook. This is the generic logbook. This logbook is designed to be used against any NVQ, and in fact, you could use it for any job you would do, for any purpose really. It's a means of recording a job activity. And there's sufficient, well, it's small, but there's certainly sufficient space to record it in. It goes over 2 pages actually, just a sample, and it allows you to actually use the page numbers to cross-reference. So I'll put the reference number in, but it's not the sole method of doing it. It's a method you can use of doing it. But so far the feedback's been quite positive about the A6 logbook. It does copy industry practice. There's a range of logbooks out there at A5 and A6. So we're quite confident it'll go down well, this logbook, and it will certainly support taking assessment onto the tracks. That was the point. The difficulty was always been with NVQs, is that as to getting an assessor and taking this onto the tracks. This way the logbook can be filled in on the tracks and then go back to the portfolio, and then the assessor can interact there. This slide relates to the delivery of what we call delivery advice, or the syllabus for the underpinning knowledge. And you can see there, I mean, obviously you can't read it, but the syllabus, these tend to run to quite a few pages for each learning outcome. So there's quite clearly a lot of work's got, well, has got into content, and this is the taught content, So basically, provided we offer these apprenticeships or these qualifications, that there is, we provide sufficient knowledge for you and the opportunity to ensure we get a standardised approach, that the qualifications are delivered in a standardised way, and then assessment, so we come to the assessment, everybody's an equal chance of achieving it. It sounds obvious, but if we didn't provide this delivery advice, we left it generic and open, you would find a huge range of different delivery quality going on over the country, and therefore different levels of people passing and failing over the country. And that's the one thing we certainly don't want. So we're providing as much standard information as possible. It certainly supports that. I think I've got a question coming in. Somebody asked a question about the cost of the logbooks. I'll come to the costings at the end. There is a cost, but I'll come to that at the end. But the logbooks can be purchased separately, so if that's okay, I'll answer that question at the end. Forgive me, my screen doesn't allow me a lot of space to see things. Thank you, Brad. Again, this is it's quite a comprehensive document, this, but it's an example. It's published as a document. This is for the Level 2 technical certificate for the apprenticeship, and there will be one for Level 3, where we provide these exemplar assessments. So maybe we give you a pack of assessments that's PDF document. All our I'll come to pricing at the end, but all our materials once you're EAL Centre and registered on this qualification are free to download from our website. So there's no cost for this. It's included in the cost of the qualification. But we provide these exemplar assessments, and if you read through them and you decided you wanted to tweak them a bit, you can do that in conjunction with this, and that's in conjunction with your external verifier, that he is convinced that you're still meeting the standard, and indeed you're just changing something. You're not taking something out. We're just saying, well, we don't quite do it that way, we do it this way, so can we assess it this way? And there's no issue at all. But rather than give you a complete blank template and say, write your own assessments, these have been written by industry standards, by industry experts, so we're quite confident that these do fit the need. There's a question come in about, does one file support these qualifications? Yes, well, yes, they do. Yes and no, they're not on one file at the moment, but we have no issue with these going on to ePortfolio. I mean, the A4 ring binders, the NVQ units, can go on to one file or an ePortfolio, absolutely. Forgive me, the questions are coming in very fast. Yes, somebody asked a question about logbooks and signalling. The logbook I showed you, if I dare go back a couple of slides. Can I go back a couple of slides, Brian? Sorry. One more. That one there, sorry. It's a generic A6 logbook, so it's generic in nature. This will fit any, in fact, this will fit any NVQ. We developed it for the rail qualifications, but in reality, that logbook will fit any NVQ. It's a means of recording the job. Thank you, Brian. Go back to where I was. Thank you. Question coming in, will I be sending the presentation out? Yes, the presentation, at the end of the presentation is an email address. If you email me at the end of the presentation, I will certainly send it straight to you this morning, but it is available to everybody afterwards, I believe, after the presentation becomes available to all the people who have been on the presentation. Awesome. The system is answering the question while I'm talking, so there you go. Even better. Now the next qualification. Everything I've talked about so far has been about the apprenticeship. So this Level 2 OLC qualification certificate is slightly different. This is the one we developed for use for mature existing workers or mature entrants into the sector. And I say mature because entrants into the sector are either apprentices or adults. So this is for the adults. This qualification was initially developed alongside another qualification. We have track renewals qualification, whereas the mandatory unit of the qualification are designed to recognise existing practice. So your personal track safety, track induction, first aid, in this instance working at heights, all the courses you have to do are included in this qualification. So it's economy of delivery really. You have to do these courses anyway, so we will accept your APL, accredited prior learning, or recognition of prior learning, RPL. We will recognise that, so if you've done the industry course and the content of our qualifications based on that, then if we provide that evidence, we will accept that evidence as meeting that requirement of that bit of the qualification. So again, I keep repeating myself on this thing about burden of assessment. We don't want you doing it twice. You have to do it anyway. So the first mandatory units of this qualification are based on the things you do have to do. Then beyond that, it's structured in such a way, well, I think the next slide shows it, but it's structured in such a way that you do the basic underpinning knowledge of overhead line construction, working at heights, then you pick which units you want. And there's 5 areas in overhead line construction. We've built the qualifications so they're 5 separate units. In an ideal world, everybody would do all 5, of course, but in reality, people might be employed on a certain job on a wiring train, or they might work for a steel company, putting up main part steel work. And if we said you had to do all of the qualification, of course, there'd be very few people able to complete it in a reasonable time frame. So you pick the units you want, and then we will award those for you. The hyperlinks on here, I mean, I won't click them now, I'll probably knock the whole thing off, but when I send the presentation out, they'll take you to the off-qual register, and that's where you can see the content of the qualification. So if you click those, it gives you the full content of the qualification. Again, there's another logbook, but this logbook, if we go to the next page, next page, Brian, thank you. This logbook, it looks the same on the screen there, but it's actually different, and you can see the content of it slightly different, whereas this is the OLC logbook, and you can see there there's 5 areas: main steel work, small part wiring, in-span, earthing and bonding. And again, basically, that's 5 units of the qualification. That's the 5 optional units, and you pick which one or all 5 you want to do. And you get just an example of one of the pages there. I think it's wiring page. It is the wiring page, and you can see you've got to do things 3 times: recover wire, run out wire. And again, it is very much based on the content of OLOC. So a question coming about this logbook actually. Has this logbook been trialled? Anybody? Yes, we have. Well, I can't give an exact number, but we have certainly taken a lot of registrations on these qualifications. The logbooks are used, they've been completed, they're half completed. We've had some good feedback from Carillion, actually, have done this and given us some really good feedback, which we're looking at reviewing the content of some aspects of it for the next print run. So yes, the logbooks are, it's not a trial, it'd be unfair to call it a trial, we're not trialling it on you. We did run pilots initially, but of course we are very much open to customer feedback. Certainly not telling you what you're getting. We would like to give you what you ask for. So, you know, when we see these, if we come and visit you, we'll certainly leave one with you, and you can see one for real and get your feedback on it. We're very much, you will all know this, being from the rail industry. This small logbook approach is quite standard in the industry, and I have seen a huge amount of different types of logbook, which we did consider when developing this. So we're quite positive that this is the way forward. Come up towards my last slide now, and I'm sorry I'm probably going quite quick, but I'm conscious of your time this morning. Now I put on pricing on here. I put pricing where we do publish a really good price list on our website now, actually, which is a really clear and a good document. But I just picked out the bits from these particular qualifications, so you've got it in front of you, and the things we need. And this is what we discussed earlier about how our pricing works. If I just run through each one, it's not particularly about the price, the cost. What I want to talk about is how we structure our pricing. And you can see the first qualification is £50, but that's inclusive of downloadable PDF material. That's the level 2 technical certificate. So that £50 is everything. Now we give you the qualification, the registration, the certification, in this instance all the materials, so the syllabus and the assessment. So it's very competitively priced, but that's only available as PDFs in this instance. If you look at the next one's an NVQ, and with our NVQs, all our NVQs in EAL, we offer 2 options. You can see the level 2 NVQ is £63 or £83. I think this answers a question we had earlier about the cost. So £63, you can register the qualification and you can access the PDFs and download your own materials and print them yourselves and assemble your own portfolios. Or for £83, you get that and one of them for each learner. And this comes with a front sheet in it with the learner's name, his or her name, and the registration number and all the details. And I know you appreciate, if you're not familiar with these, this is really good quality. It's all big rivets, really thick cardboard. You dig some destroying that, and it's high quality stuff. And I think that's £20, and then you get the relevant A6 logbook as well. So actually, you get the material. Now we did an exercise. We've done this with a couple of centres. You've taken our qualification. You question the pricing. And you take, say, 100 learners, and we worked out the cost of the centre printing their own materials. There's a question about minimum spend thresholds just come in. Now, EAL don't. I mean, compared to other awarding organisations, we don't have any minimum spend thresholds. You can register 1 learner with EAL, or you can register 1,000 learners with EAL. I mean, we don't. when you're an approved EAL centre, that's as far as it ends there on that. We don't have any criteria or put any criteria onto you about how much you must spend with this, or we don't have any clawback, or we don't penalise you in any way whatsoever. So we're quite happy for you to set up as an EAL centre and register one learner. So if that answers that, I hope that answers that. I know some awarding bodies do have minimum spend thresholds and then penalise you, expect you to pay that money if you don't do it. That's not how we operate. So again, and the pricing, if you look down, it's the same things. The NVQs come, there's £20 difference in the pricing. The technical certificates are the prices that they are, and they come down with downloadable PDF materials. An EAL centre approval, and £575 in the first year and £440 an area thereafter. And I'm quite confident in saying that that page contains all the pricing information you need, and it's that transparent. There's no hidden things, so you can get a good impression there. If you want to set up as an EAL centre and you've got 10 apprentices, you can pretty much predict the price quite accurately just off this slide. So I've almost come to the end of the moment. The presentation does tell me that people are coming. There's a lot of questions being written, so forgive me. I'm going to answer the questions for a moment, if that's all right. Do the publications come personalised to the learner? Yes, as I say, on these publications, if you purchase the publication from EAL, it does come personalised with a front sheet with their name and details on. As I started to say earlier, we ran this exercise with a few centres where they actually printed their own material. We sat with them and worked it out, and they agreed with us that the materials actually were cheaper to buy them than to pay somebody to buy the ring binders, to print them, to assemble them, to get them to the learners, and at the end of the day they didn't get the quality we provided anyway. So it may seem, well, do your own, but in reality we've yet to find anybody who says it's actually cheaper to do your own than to buy the quality materials, which is interesting. Forgive me, there's...
You might scroll back up.
So forgive me, there's a lot of questions flying in at the moment. I'm just...
The last one was...
there's a question here on...
We were holding other webinars on rail.
Other webinars on rail apprenticeships. We have had one already actually, which is on YouTube, but I think the link's on the website. There is a link to it on our website. And yes, I do intend to have at least one more this year at some point about level 3 apprenticeships once we get the materials, and maybe to run through, because there's certainly... We all know this, I think, that the rail apprentices have been you've been using engineering qualifications for years, and what we've tried to do at EAL is develop new rail engineering qualifications for apprentices. So there will be another presentation on that. The logbook is generic, can it be used for anything? Yeah, no, the generic logbook is purely generic. So as any NVQ is similar in terms of its context and its style, then the generic logbook can be used. So actually the generic logbook could be used for any EAL NVQ, I'm quite confident in saying, if you wanted to. It's developed for rail, but you could use it out of that context. Yeah, it's completely generic. The one for the level 2 certificate isn't, of course, because it's based around the 5 areas of OLEC. So I'm apologies, the questions are coming in thicker and fast and I can answer them. I understand the deal as specialist rail external verifiers, which is good. Do these EVs cover all rail qualifications? Yes, they do. I mean, what we do, when we say specialist rail, that's where it ends. So they've got personal track safety, they're briefed in rail, they've got generally some sort of rail background. But EAL have never run their external verification team where you're either a signalling EV or a welding EV or a fitting EV. That's not how it operates. It's an engineering EV, and these guys are rail engineering EVs. So in answer to your question, yes, they do cover all areas. We don't specialise to that level. It'd be impossible. On the size of our organisation, we have 800 centres over a huge range of qualifications. It'd be impossible to administer. So how we operate is EVs do have specialist areas, but it's an area of engineering as opposed to discrete areas within that. Is there a minimum practical area required for training? And are there nominal pieces to the kit that are required? Well, yes, it depends what qualification you're doing. Yes, if you're doing a track apprenticeship, we would expect you to have access to track. And I'm talking for training purposes and not assessment, because the assessment will take place on real track, of course, because it's an NVQ. So there is the minimum areas required, and if you'd like to contact us after the presentation, and if you're thinking of setting a centre up, we'll certainly pay you a visit and discuss that. Will EAL look to work with the new HS2 colleges in Doncaster and Birmingham? Well, absolutely. That's quite important. So we've certainly, EAL are not part of NSAR, but EAL I work closely with NSAR, and we have done throughout, and certainly with the college in the new college in the Siemens NSAR Traction and Rolling Stock College. We're certainly working closely with that, and the HS2 colleges. It's very new. It's only just been announced, but we're certainly, I think we're all agreeing on looking at a hub and spoke type approach. So we're hoping that the EAL existing centres, and there are many EAL existing centres in those areas, will become part of those colleges, the hub and spoke approach. So absolutely, yes, we do. We are looking to work with them, and we're now actually starting to have discussions with it, and looking forward to meeting up and discussing how we can support. Bearing in mind these colleges have been announced initially at level 4 and above, and we're whopping up to level 3, but certainly we're a very important part of this, because where are these level 4 people going to come from? So, and a part of their strategy must include apprenticeships and how we get there. Interesting question about our IRSE and NV. There is. I've met with IRSE actually, and there is. The NVQs we do are very based against the IRSE. Actually set out the structures originally. So yes, absolutely there is. There are structures against it, and that's something I won't go on about it now because I'm conscious of time. But please contact me. I'm happy to have that discussion with you, more detail on that. So I've got one more question coming in. You said logbook, but generic does that mean? Oh, forgive me, I've answered that. Sorry. I think these questions have come in twice some of these actually, but thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, one more.
Have one more, sorry.
Yeah, one more from the page. It says, welcome Brian. It says, as our program and clients incorporate a reasonable amount of ex-Army personnel, could we obtain support regarding your certificates for the mature learner?
100% yes, actually. That's where we've been using these qualifications. Our program and clients probably, they've been ideal. We've used this qualification recently with a company in the Northwest, working with an ex-Gurkha from the Gurkha regiment, a number of people, very successfully. So absolutely. And if you are funding that via LCAS funding, then this is a level 2, remember. So we map it then to a level 3 NVQ in OLEC, and then that can access the LCAS funding for ex-military. Our qualifications are LCAS recognised. So we put a programme together of the level 2 followed by a level 3, and that will allow you to draw down Ministry of Defence funding. So there's one more question coming in. And thank you for your time this morning. Sorry, I'm conscious, but the questions are fantastic. Thank you. Where's that question gone? So I'm looking at these questions through a tiny little box in the corner of the screen. Sorry. But the ex-military question is a very good question. It's not why we developed the qualification, but we do understand that a lot of ex-military do go into the rail industry, from Royal Signals and REME and engineers, and it's something we did consider. And so far, what we've done and how it's been received by the people in ex-military training, including the military people themselves we work with, and the support we've had, it's gone really, really well. Actually, we're really pleased. Forgive me, there's another question coming in now. So these questions take a bit of time to get here, don't they? Yeah. There you go. Yes, absolutely. It's not developed for the military. It's just it just fits that need. Absolutely. If you were thinking mixed group type approach, if you've had a group of adult learners, some of whom were ex-military and some of whom weren't, it wouldn't make any difference to the qualification. And in fact, the person who asked that question, I'm coming to see you soon, aren't I? So we can take that out in more detail, and I'll bring the stuff with me to show you. And indeed, anybody at the end, you can see that's the last slide there. That rail@eal.org.uk is actually me. It's my second email address. And any further questions, or if you want to hear more of a visit, you'd like us to come and visit you and show you, for real, the materials and discuss your actual needs of setting the centre up, we will certainly come and see you. I'd love to come and see you. We have a sales team, we have an EAL railway engineering team, and we have a number of consultants working for us from the rail industry who support us and who also can certainly support you. And this is in terms of setting a centre up. This is in terms of the question of what materials do we need, funding, ways and means of funding, how you can approach funding, partnership approach to funding, linking up with larger funding providers. It's the level of support we're trying to provide, and so far I feel we've been quite successful in supporting our centres. Thank you very much for your time. I think that's the last question, so thank you very much indeed for your time, I really do appreciate it. Please email that email address there if you require anything. I will certainly get the attendee list this morning and email the presentation out from this morning. Thank you very much, everybody, and good morning.